Welcome to the Center Mid Philosopher. This episode is brought to you by Augustus Royale Fashion. Life's not black and white, it's gray, and gray is beautiful. Check out the brand below in the link. Hey soccer fans, you've got this week's episode of the Center Mid Philosopher. Today we're going to have Will Hesmer joining us. He's a Wake Forest Hall of Famer, former decorated goalie for the Columbus Crew, first team All-American, first round draft pick, and a personal friend and a guy I used to play with and against, just a great guy. But before we get him on, wanted to dive into a couple of the craziness over the weekend in the world of soccer. Zach, I don't know if you happened to catch the Espanyol fans rushing the field to literally chase the Barcelona players into the dressing room after Barcelona was celebrating pretty aggressively on their own field for winning the league title. Did you happen to catch that?
It's crazy. I did catch that. It's people take their soccer, there's like gangs associated with soccer clubs, like in England and Spain and everywhere else. I did catch that. It's crazy, man. Crazy.
Yeah, well, it was weird because it was a particularly insane weekend because there was a lot of that all over the world, actually. There was one. This actually wasn't an angry mob, but it was AC Milan. There's a really cool image of their entire team confronting their ultras after a 2-0 loss.
Because that team was already relegated, so They were at the bottom of the. Yep, I did see that as well.
Hot on the heels of the loss to Inter in the Champions League, and they were having like a powwow with the ultras to kind of say, "Hey, we're sorry, we get it," and so that was crazy. And then you had Ricardo Pepi's team in Holland, de Groningen, having to end the match 10 minutes in because their own fans threw smoke bombs onto the field as to protest their relegation. Some pretty crazy fan support all over the world this weekend.
If you had to make an educated guess, you think he's the guy for the next World Cup cycle? You think it's going to be? I'm going to botch his name, but I don't think he's switched internationalities yet. But Balagion, Arsenal loanee. I mean, hey, do you think Pepe's the guy? Is it going to be someone out of nowhere? What do you think?
I wish we could get him, but I'm now reading some stuff saying that England's making a real hard push at him here again lately. I mean, he spent that weekend in Orlando with going to Magic games, hanging out with celebrities. And again, maybe that's why Thierry Henry might be able to sway him if we hire him, but I don't know that we will. So Pepe, I can't believe he wasn't included in this last World Cup, honestly.
I thought that was the most surprising admission, especially when you see who we brought. Mm-hmm. I thought he was the best guy in the run of qualifiers. Mm-hmm. Typical 9, right? Like, kind of looks and plays the part, hold up play, lone man up there. I thought that was the only grueling omission from what the team needed personally.
Yeah, we could have used him, and I do like Josh Sargent a lot, but he's great for playing it into him, and he can hold it and then dish it out. And I do like Josh Sargent a lot, but Pepe might be a better finisher, so he could be the guy. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and I just, Haji Wright and Jesus Ferrer,
hey, great players, but
oh my goodness, we're picking at straws here. Yeah, exactly. At the highest level, but I feel like that was the one that I think was the head scratcher for sure. Yeah,
and then of course you had another Arsenal meltdown. Arsenal's going to Arsenal. They were so close, man. They had it within their reach, and then they got eviscerated by Brighton 3-0, and Odegaard was quoted being like, "Well, that's pretty much a wrap for us." And did you happen to catch that?
I did. Ran out of steam. any Pep team is just going to be a well-oiled machine. They're going to keep the mindset all the way through. I think they'll be back. I think they'll be back in the mix. I think a skeptic would say, well, it's been a down year for Liverpool. It's been a down year for Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have to imagine those guys are, going to be coming back up at, next year as we start. But I really like how they have the team built. Some of the potential transfers that you hear about would do nothing but bolster the squad. So I think they'll be back in the mix. But, it fell a little short this year, didn't they?
Yeah. Another cool I watched a lot this weekend was MLS rivalry week. Not every single rivalry was, they didn't have El Trafico, but they did. Charlotte FC played Atlanta, which was cool, and they won. They won 3-0, which was awesome at Atlanta. A lot of great young players made their debut. Caden Glover for St. Louis made his senior team debut for St. Louis FC. You've got Kremashi down in Miami continuing to do well, and he's sort of a dual. Argentina's making a real run at him, but he came up through the Inter Miami Academy. So, and then you got Tolkien up in New York Red Bulls that are some really big clubs are thinking about making a splash for him. I think he's maybe 20, and he's a great player. He's got the best hairdo in the game of soccer right now. So it is cool to see. I continue to watch and appreciate and be encouraged by how many young players are not just in the academy system, but are starting to make it to the full senior squad at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And that's a bright, I think the future looks bright for us.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Pulisic was the first young guy to really make a stand in Europe. Now there's, what do we have? I would imagine around 25, 30, throughout the ranks or potentially links. Maybe this is a whole different topic for a whole nother show, but whoever's doing that MLS scheduling, me and my buddy were talking the other day, I think they could do a little bit more to take that person that watches international soccer and Premier League and all that sorts, and if you got 4 games going on one time, how am I supposed to watch all of them at the same time? But anyway, maybe that's a combo for another day.
Well, no, I mean that is what's so awesome about the EPL is it literally is like perfect time. It's early, but for everyone getting up, it's like on Saturdays, especially in the fall, it's before college football gets going, and so it's like kind of that 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock a.m. time slot, which is perfect. And of course that's not ideal for MLS, but I agree with you. It is it's very competitive landscape of not to just mention American sports, but all global teams all over. You're competing with a lot there. But again, the Apple subscription that MLS has got going is a really cool way to see a lot effortlessly if and when you can. So I encourage viewers and listeners to check that out. But I believe we got Will Hesmer here joining us here momentarily. So let's pan over to him.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm just going to remind everyone listening before we get into it to like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version, reviews go a long way, and check out the version on YouTube. There's some extra stuff that you might see. Really appreciate everyone listening. Comment any topics that you'd like to for us to expand upon. And I see that he's pulling up right now, so let's go ahead and get into it.
Right, and send it to find friends and send ideas for guests.
That's it.
Thanks so much.
Yep. All right, let's get into it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's episode of the Center Mid Philosopher. We've got a special guest today, Will Hesmer, a local North Carolina legend, hailing from the great town of Wilson by way of Raleigh, former Jamestown Jammer legend, Wake Forest Hall of Famer, All-American, top first-round 17th draft pick in the MLS, 100 career starts, played with and under some of the best goalies of all time, Tony Meola, amongst many others, and really was a legend at the Columbus Crew, where he really made a name for himself. And that, I believe that was kind of your real home. Is that right, Will?
That's right. That's where I finally got a chance to play.
And you played a lot, and you did really, really well. You had a great squad there. yeah, I just kind of want to let's dive in on some current world topics of soccer. Just I always want to get opinions of the experts such as yourself. To start, we've been asking everybody, who do you want as the next U.S. men's head coach?
I'm probably alone on this, but I think they should hand the keys back to Berhalter. And I think he did a fantastic job. And the ending was just spoiled by some stuff that you'd imagine out of a U8 local team.
Right. I know.
But Greg did an unbelievable job. I mean, we were in every game. The team was cohesive. He built a culture. He had an identity. I think if he could get another 4-year cycle with this young group of players, not my call, but that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm right there with you. My second choice might be again, do you think that the coach needs to be American?
I'm biased there. I would prefer an American. I just think historically, again, there's data to support both sides. There's just something about having an American lead your country. I mean, just having your own nationality lead your national team, I think, just gives you a little extra oomph that's obviously not in the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've talked about this a lot, and I sound like a xenophobic person because I'd love to have Mourinho, or I'd love to have Ancelotti, or but I just feel like we have such a unique culture, and especially unique to sports, that you just have to understand the landscape. And it's because Klinsmann, I wanted him to be the coach more than anyone, but holy Lord, was that a misfire. And I just feel like there's a disconnect. There's just a uniqueness to the American ego, and the competitive landscape of sports, really, frankly. And soccer still feels it's come a long, long, long way since when you and I were coming along, but it still feels really entrepreneurial. There's a bit of a salesmanship to the position as well. Don't you agree?
Definitely. I mean, a big part of the job now is as a recruiter.
Yeah, right.
So, if you're an American, I would think that would help bleed out a little bit more when you're going to recruit these kids.
Yeah.
And plus, it's a grinder job. I mean, it's, a big name. Is the big name really going to grind from a Guatemalan, game and fly out across the world and go check out, a second division, English Championship League game and watch players or scout? I mean, it is a tough job. I would not want it. I do not envy the position. Yeah. Again, which is why Greg is that. I mean, Greg lives, breathes, eats, dies. I mean, it is soccer, football all day long.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I thought Greg was great. Have you ever met him?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know him? That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, he's great. And it was wild, the whole, the Reina versus Berhalter clash of titans there. I feel like they were both a little bit wrong there, but I would have to think the Reinas might. Where do you fall on that? Who was more the guilty party on that one?
I mean, the Reinas, no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel for them. I know it's hard as a parent. You've built up in this big moment. I know as parents in a family, they've been through a lot.
Yeah, I know.
Losing a son. I mean, so there is very little judgment there, but in that moment, they were wrong.
Yeah.
And I just wish U.S. Soccer had to come out immediately and said, hey, listen, we're not going to try people for 40 years ago, the crimes that they may or may not have.
Right.
Crimes, right? I use that loosely. For a college boyfriend-girlfriend tiff, I mean, if we all did that in every industry, none of us would be working, right?
That's a good point.
I just wish U.S. Soccer had handled it a little bit better, but, the media got a hold of it and ate U.S. Soccer up with it, and they didn't have an answer and feel like they could make a comment. And in today's kind of CYA world, they had to, form a committee and explore and make sure, nothing else was going on, which is understandable considering, especially when you dig into like USA Gymnastics World, etc.
Sure.
Okay, was this just a one-time event as 19-year-old college kids, or was there anything systemic that this kept going throughout U.S. soccer? So, I'm trying to see both sides of it, but I wish somebody within U.S. soccer had come out strongly and said, "Hey, Greg, you're good here, and you're our coach."
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, especially with U.S. soccer. Like, where have they been in all this? They just named Crocker. I mean, it took them, and I mean, I feel like we got to get going here. Like, we have probably the biggest potential, event in our lifetimes. I mean, it was 94, but 2026 is massive. Like, they've got to get the key pieces in place, and they got to start getting the branding and the messaging on that right immediately. And I feel like they're just lollygagging on it.
Yeah, there's a lot going on within U.S. soccer, needless to say.
Mm-hmm.
And, Cindy Parlow-Cohn, who's local here around here as well.
Yeah, she's
our president, fellow Tar Heel.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unpaid position. It has been an unpaid position. I mean, I can't imagine her workload for an unpaid position. So
crazy.
The amount of work that needs to be done at the U.S. soccer is just astronomical. And so I think she's come in. I think she's done a fantastic job from, the equal pay stuff, the women's, men's, all the collective bargaining, the lawsuits, et cetera. And I think she's trying to put us on a good path.
Yeah, no, I love her. She's a stud. Well, and so we were speaking of U.S. soccer, and as it stems down, you and I are former, players of the old school club system. And again, you were on that ridiculously awesome Jammers team that you guys made it to the Nationals at one point, right?
I never made it with the Nationals with Jamestown. We broke up before I think our age group was allowed. We won a couple regionals, if I remember correctly. We made a couple of national championships with actually Charlotte.
Oh, nice.
Charlotte, which was crazier. But yeah, that Jamestown team. I mean, I probably wasn't even the 5th or 6th best player. Shoot, I might not even been in the top 10.
Yeah.
We had some ballers.
Yeah, old Dunnigan, Graham Pettigrew. And Sam Boshin's a buddy of mine now here in town in Greensboro, which is awesome.
And Clyde Sims just walked on water. I mean, Clyde could turn it on and dominate a game whenever he wanted.
Yeah, I used to mark him back in the day when we would scrimmage you guys, and we had the advantage of being a year up, but y'all still took it to us, and I loved watching you guys. But yes, I mean, on the academy system now, we were just talking about we both have young kids, and I wonder what your thoughts are on the whole academy system now versus what we came up with. I certainly have plenty of my own thoughts, but I'll hand it over to you because I've follow you on Twitter, and you definitely have an opinion. Like point blank, will you have your kids participate in it within NCFC?
They are. They're in it. Both of them. Both of them are doing the NCFC Juniors program right now.
Nice.
They do a fantastic job. It's the only game in town, though. I mean, they are the only option if your kids want to play youth soccer. So, I mean, it's not a decision. It's a monopoly.
Yeah, man.
Again, they do a good job. They have great coaches. They have good leadership. But again, they're the only people who have the field space. They've dominated and locked up the field space. There's no other competitors that can really come into town. Again, they do a good job locally. I'm just not sure it's good for the entire ecosystem of U.S. soccer.
Yeah, so I've said this a bunch, and so it's the same with us with Fusion. Again, Fusion listeners out there, we had a wonderful season. My younger son, Henry, just had an awesome season in the junior academy as well, and it was really great, and it's gotten better. But I'm witnessing this a lot, especially with my older son, Jack, and he played in it as well. And it was hard when you and I were coming along, but it's pretty much impossible actually now. I think they've overcooked it. Like when you start getting to be 10, 11, 12, it's 3-4 practices a week. Like you cannot play baseball. You cannot play basketball. You cannot play football. And they're losing athletes. Like my son has an AAU basketball team, and one of the best players on his team, a boy named William Kraft, is one of the best athletes in town, and he just basically had to quit soccer recently because he wants to play basketball, and it was just impossible to do both. And for every rock star we're getting, we're losing 9 others. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of thoughts on that. I mean, and take a step back. So looking back at our generation and the coaches we had moms and dads who didn't know anything about soccer.
Right.
I mean, nothing about soccer. They just ran us to death. They made a culture. Hey, team, rah, rah, rah. To today, now you have ex-players. Some good ones, right, that played and had a good history of the game and know the game very well, and a lot of not so good ones who did not play the game at a high level. This is I don't hate to say lower end of the totem pole, but this beats having a PE high school job, coaching job, right? From 9 to 5, dealing with a public school system. Hey, I'm just going to go coach soccer instead. Right. So at least now we are getting true professional coaches other than moms and dads. But the guys like me who played, we didn't make anything, right, for our first 10 years of playing professional soccer. Right. So we had to go turn in like, no, sorry, we can't go coach. We got to go try to make some real money in some other business venture, et cetera. So it's harder for I think our generation to give back, but it is starting to happen.
Right.
Where you're getting some higher level coaches into the U.S. soccer system, which I think will be nothing but good. But that's just going to continue to take time. But to your point of us losing talent because our soccer academies want the whole pie and they're not willing to have just a slice of that guy, I think is the biggest mistake these clubs are making by far.
Amen, man.
By far, I cannot preach it enough.
Me too.
They all sing the same song and say the same thing. Oh, we want you to play multiple sports. We value it. We know it's good for you mentally, physically, etc. But then when the rubber hits the road, you better be here or you're not going to be on the team. It's, well, hey, my son just also made this all-star West Raleigh baseball team. This is what we're going through right now. He's 8 years old.
Yep.
Right. 8 years old. Well, he's got to pick one. What can he be at? Well, we're not ready to do that. He's 8 years old. I was never a full-time goalkeeper until I was 18 years old.
There it is.
I played 5 sports in high school.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know what college I was going to go to and what sport I was going to play all the way up until, Christmas of my senior year. I was still getting recruited for football and basketball and soccer. I mean, I knew soccer was by far my best sport, but all of those sports helped me so much, not only in just obviously soccer, but life. I mean, everything. And so I'm feeling that right now. So obviously there's a little passion coming out on that, but I think you nailed it. The guys then will run. The really good players are going to say, well, I can go make $100,000 being a soccer player at 18, or I can go make $100 million being a basketball or football or baseball player at $100 million. I mean, I hate that runs our country, but it does. And then what are they going to say? Mom and dad are going to say, well, maybe we're going to go play baseball or football today. Right. And then we're losing these phenomenal athletes. The second big piece is because of that commitment. The commitment is their number one. They're picking kids on who is more committed, who is showing up on time, who is showing up regularly to practice. And the kid who has a ton of talent, right, who maybe isn't showing up as much or working on the side, they don't want to develop that talent. They don't want to have to coach. They don't want to have to go make this, they'd rather have this committed kid who's going to listen and be coachable versus this superstar athlete that they can go mold into the next Thierry Henry. Or Edwin van der Sar, or Peter Schmeichel. Instead, those guys are going to go play baseball or basketball.
Yep. No, I mean, it's heartbreaking because literally there's a couple of teams, fusion teams, that are like getting into 7th grade now that were really, really good. And like just in the blink of an eye, half the team quit because they're being torn in too many different directions. And it's particularly brutal for like a Greensboro and Winston right now, which back in the day we used to really be good and could hang with Raleigh and Charlotte. But the population of Raleigh and Charlotte has doubled since you and I were kids, and so it's made it. It's pretty rough going, competing wise. But then, but the intensity's still there. So like, it keeps me up at night thinking of all the talent we're losing year over year. And when you and I were coming along, like I chose soccer exclusively by high school, but in middle school I was still playing basketball, tennis, golf, like pretty, for school, like pretty competitively. And they're having to make that choice in third and fourth grade now, which is just preposterous. And the best thing about the American athlete is the American athlete, in that, like, you're the case in point. You played all these different sports, and it's what made you so good. And I think we've over Europeanified the system a little bit, which just doesn't translate to America. Like, I remember saying, mission number one for a lot of these coaches from age third grade to seventh grade should be for them to continue to fall in love with the game. Like, it should be, I know they need to be serious and train and stuff, but like, it should be fun. They should make friends. They should have camaraderie. And it's so individualized now. Like, they move players in and out all these other teams. And had it not been for camaraderie of my buddies and stuff, I probably wouldn't have made it all the way through to 12th grade. Because you get to high school and you start seeing, there's a lot of other distractions out there. You need your buddies to keep you in it. So anyway, I hope.
And if you're the superstar on that team, right? Like, if you're your local small town superstar, and now you're having to travel an hour or two to play for a Charlotte or a Raleigh or an Austin or a Houston, right? So now the academy system has made you completely turn your back on your hometown friends that you grew up playing with.
Yeah,
now you're just abandoning your whole community to go chase your dream, which is cool, right? Mm-hmm. But the odds of that dream panning out is 1%, right? Yeah. So now you've lost your whole high school. You didn't play with all your buddies. And not only do you not playing with your buddies and losing that kind of community feel, but me playing, I play for the Jamestown Jammers. I travel 2 hours away. I come back. I still got to play high school soccer with all my old buddies.
Yeah.
Right. And we were good. We had really good players, but I was the best player on my team. Mm-hmm. And everybody looked up to me. And I had to learn how to be a leader.
Right.
I had to learn how to show up when I want. I couldn't hide in any practice or game, mm-hmm. right? Like I could do with the state team or regional team from time to time. I had a bad game. Logan would pick it up. Grant would pick it up.
Sure.
Whoever, right? Well, your high school or your local team, it's on you.
Right.
You show up that day and your buddies win. If you don't show up that day, you lose. So you feel that pressure, right, of what it's like to be the guy, even though you might not be the superstar at the next level. You learn how to lead. There was so much value in that the academies ripped out right at the beginning by eliminating the high school soccer.
Yeah.
Which again, I get. You're not getting the coaching, and it's not pound for pound the best development. But those intangibles were just completely overlooked that I think you see now or saw in the last cycle while we missed the cup.
Yep.
Right?
I totally
you didn't
agree.
have that leadership. You didn't have that bite. You didn't have that fight. From some, but not all.
Well, and to your point, our club team, we were early days state champs, dominant, and then we kind of like late middle school, I guess for whatever reason, we kind of faltered a little bit. And I guess a bunch of us didn't hit our growth spurts in time or something. But then we got to freshman, sophomore year of high school, and everyone kind of rediscovered their love of the game. And we all ended up kind of being top dogs on our teams. And we're like, oh, yeah, we're good. And we can, like, our team needs us to lead. And we got to play in front of our friends, in front of girls, against our friends. We got to step it up. And then we kind of catapulted back into the top two, where we were playing with Raleigh and Charlotte in state championships again. And had it not been for that high school experience, a lot of us probably would have just not made it all the way. And we certainly wouldn't have found our love of the game.
Right. And that pressure, I can tell you right now, I've played in both, right? I've played in a high school semifinal state championship with your whole school there. Yeah. Everybody grew up with cheering for you. I've played in a national championship, right, with my club team. There's no one in the stands other than your parents.
Right.
maybe a sibling or two, right?
Right.
You don't have that same pressure from a crowd, that same experience of, hey, these are the people who have watched me, grow up. I'm going to have to go sit in Miss L's Spanish class Monday morning. Like, I want her to be proud of my performance tonight. I mean, it's just a different animal. And again, the academy system, with good intentions, and they have made some phenomenal talent, right?
Yeah.
It's lost that piece that we grew up with, and I think that we look back and love.
We do, and no, that's great. You and I are totally aligned on that. Again, like, we've had a great experience, but it's just, it's hard to. I mean, God, how hard was it to make it from 4th to 12th grade when you and I were coming along? Now it's like, it's 1 out of 200 that are going to make it all the way, just from the commitment alone and the sacrifices you have to make. And so I just hate that. And I just think it's too much too soon, but hopefully we'll maybe find a middle ground in there. You mentioned the monopoly part of it too. It's one-stop shop, and I don't think that's the best way either, because you need alternatives that might suit other athletes a little bit better. And but anyway, we could keep going on that, but I appreciate your insight.
Yeah, I mean, just to pick on MCFC, I mean, it's a pyramid, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they talk about the quantity, right? They're the biggest path to pro, biggest youth club, but they have way too many players that they know they can't serve, right? I mean, that's what all of these have to become to support that top. So I think the quality is kind of drowning. I think a lot of them are seeing that. And I think that will in itself, a little bit fall under their own weight.
Yeah. You touched on earlier the early days of MLS and not making much money. And again, those that were, like myself, proud to have played alongside all you guys. And we watched you guys and rooted for you guys because you were ours that made it all the way. And you're heroes to all of us, that you and Logan and Eddie and Grant and, Clyde, and list goes on and on and on. But do you have any kind of cool stories that illustrate the early days? You touched on like having to search for other sources of income and stuff. And it's just those early days of MLS were so punk rock and so just like putting the airplane together as you're flying it.
Yeah, it was crazy. First, I had to convince my parents that it was okay for me to go sign a $7,000 a year contract with no health insurance after they just paid full boat, I think maybe half boat for a Wake Forest education.
Yeah.
So they weren't too happy about that. Plus, I had just gotten very badly injured my last game at Wake. I mean, I was in the hospital for almost a month with compartment syndrome. And so they were like, are you serious? You really want to do this? I just won these scholarships from the ACC and NCAA. And the whole goal was I was going to go back to law school. No desire to be an attorney, but my dad had convinced me I needed a JD just to walk the street.
Sure. As one does.
But I wanted somehow, hey, give me a year or two to go chase this thing. I just want to get a taste of it. Even making peanuts, I mean, it was worth every penny. I mean, I cannot, thank goodness there was no social media back there. I mean, we were completely irrelevant, right? Like, we'd tell people we played for the Kansas City Wizards. People would laugh at us like, what is that? Even when we got a crowd at Arrowhead, there was no one there because it's so big and cavernous, right? Like,
sure.
Okay, they announced attendance of 20 grand. I'm sure they inflated that. But yeah, we were all coaching on the side. I mean, the Chris Kleins and Jimmy Conrads and Preckies and Josh Wolfs and Tony Miolas. I mean, they were making, good money, good living, but, I couldn't even afford to go to a Chipotle with them, right? I'd go home and have to make my own can of beans and burrito. It was, but it was good for me. I mean, it was a great way to start off as a 22-year-old in the working world. Learn quickly how to budget and make ends meet.
You played with such an awesome group at Columbus, like some of my favorites, man. I mean, Eddie Gavin, I was such a huge fan of him. Chad Marshall, Frankie Haydock. I mean, you talk to me about who were some of your best buds on that team, and who did you love playing with the most? Like, who was some of the ones that were there ever any of them that you just stopped and were like, man, this is this is awesome. This guy's really, really good. I love hearing stories of guys like that I've watched as a fan.
Yeah, all of them. I mean, truthfully, when I got in the locker room at Kansas City after getting drafted, I mean, the roster, our 2004 roster, we lost an MLS Cup final to DC, which was just bogus. I mean, we should have won that game. I think we tied for Supporter Shield. We won U.S. Open Cup. I mean, that roster was unbelievable. From old guys to young guys. I mean, 23 dudes that were just unreal. And, you know, you're, as a rookie going in there, I mean, Tony Meola was my idol as a little kid, right? Like I had Tony Meola goalie gloves. I mean, and now I'm training with him, right, every day. And it's my job to take a spot. I mean, it was just so much fun. But in Columbus, to your question, I mean, Brian Carroll by far, I mean, he and I
what a great player.
For 3 years at Wake Forest. I mean, this guy is the most underrated, you know, doesn't come off of anybody's tongue at all in thinking about that team. But as soon as we got him, I knew we had a chance to win.
Yeah, he was awesome. I loved him.
Unbelievable. Just does, again, he just goes unnoticed. He does all the dirty work that helps a team win. And then second, obviously, is Chad Marshall. I mean, that guy, I think he's the best American soccer player in the history of American soccer.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's great.
We just maybe had too much fun together, so maybe that's why I couldn't make it to his full potential. But that guy was a beast. I mean, he would eat anyone up. I mean, you know, 2-footed, is good with his feet. He was fast, obviously big, strong, good in the air. He could dominate a game at any time, and he did. And I mean, I owe a ring to him.
He kind of speaking of the American athlete, he to me is like, I mean, that guy could have been a tight end almost. I mean, he probably could have been a wing forward. Like he just seemed like he was a phenomenal all around athlete.
Yeah, a stud, great guy too, very smart. But again, I think maybe we had too much fun a couple of days, but that's all right.
That's awesome. And you mentioned you just went back for a big reunion at the new stadium. I mean, how epic is that place?
It's nuts. I mean, just how quickly it's happened.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We travel around, right? Like, again, going from playing in the Foxboroughs, the Arrowheads now, to seeing, you know, Columbus Crew's new stadium. I mean, what they built down in Austin, LAFC's new home, and the crowd, right? You know, it was Toronto came in and they kind of set the standard. You know, they had this packed stadium, and then here came Seattle and took it up a notch. And then just like that, everywhere just exploded with not only these amazing facilities. I mean, the training grounds and the training practice facilities are more impressive than the stadiums. I mean, for example, we went back to the Crew training facility. They took my family off for this huge tour. We went in there. My little boys got to eat lunch with the first teamers, and they're going through and they're having lobster rolls, right?
Wow.
We didn't get anything. I think we had
better than a can of beans.
Right? We had Pop-Tarts we could go microwave. Maybe.
Yeah, that's awesome. But you love to hear that. I mean, that's great that we're making strides, you know.
Big strides.
That's great. So yeah, I wish let's jump into the rapid fire. My favorite part. This will be fun. And for starters, who's the best player you ever played with? It could be from any age, any area. You may have just answered it though.
Yeah, Chad.
Nice. Love it. So when I guess also how much if you're given the choice to watch soccer again, I know the 2-year-old and the 3 kids, I get it, but if you do ever have a chance, what do you watch and how much MLS do you try to watch? But like who's your favorite team globally?
No favorite team globally. I don't watch a lot of European soccer at all. I'm working now during those hours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like my old schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the MLS disciplinary committee for a while after I retired.
Oh, cool.
So I was having to continue to watch a lot of games every weekend,
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 each weekend. I've since dropped off that the past few years, so I don't watch much anymore. But my preference is to watch MLS games. You know, I caught a fair amount of that LA San Jose game last night. But again, when I'm the 3 kids now in new business, when I'm getting in the bed and turning the TV on, I might last 5 minutes through a game before before I'm catching Z's.
Oh, I hear you, man. 8:30s, you're done. I'm right. I'm not too far from that, and but no, I mean, again, the MLS piece. Probably my least favorite thing is when you're talking to a soccer fan and they're like, "I don't watch MLS." I'm like, "Well, you should, because it's our game." And I also understand, like, we now, when you and I were come along, I mean, you just watched what you could, which was not much of anything. EPL a little bit, then some Champions League, and then, but now it's incredible that you can watch almost anything and everything. And for anyone listening or watching, I really encourage you to do the Apple membership. It's awesome. They have documentaries on teams that's kind of like Hard Knocks-ish styles, and then they have highlights, and then I've fallen in love with that 360 program where they have like 5 games on at once with Sasha Kleshtin and Wright Phillips, and they kind of go in and out, and it's just awesome. You can watch all these great games at once. It's so killer. So, like, I highly encourage people to watch that. Well, and again, as the name of the show goes, you got a favorite center mid of all time?
Favorite that I played with is obviously unbiased, Brian Carroll. Love Paul Scholes.
Oh, love it.
Hard not to like Paul Scholes back in the day. I mean, he just
the Ginger Prince
got it done.
He's one of my all-time favorites too, and it's interesting. A lot of people have been naming Iniesta and Xavi. Interestingly enough, Iniesta and Xavi said the hardest player they ever played against was Paul Scholes, and that's high praise right there. He was a beast. So who's your favorite goalie of all time?
Probably Van der Sar.
Nice, love it.
Like Neuer as well.
Oh yeah.
Schmeichel, obviously.
Yeah, the Great Dane. He's my favorite.
He's a beast.
Yeah, I love it. So who you got, Ronaldo or Messi?
Messi.
Right on. Messi or Maradona?
Messi.
Donovan or Dempsey?
I was just with Clint, so I better say Dempsey. But I think those guys. It's an apples and oranges comparison, but I will say Clint if I'm forced to.
Nice. Where were you with him?
Well, we were down in Pinehurst for a little golf boondoggle for 3 days with 12 ex-players flew in from all over the country. So we had, needless to say, we had a good time. The golfing wasn't great. A bunch of 40-year-olds limping around trying to play 36 holes in a day. All of us are limping in one way, shape, or form, or complaining. So lots of apple juices and lots of ibuprofen.
Right, a lot of road sodas and bowls of loudmouth soup. That's awesome, man, dude. Maybe we can cash in some favors, and I don't know, buy you dinner for a year if you can get Clint Dempsey to come on here. But no, I love Clint, and he's like kind of our guy. He's kind of he's a Texas guy, but I feel like he's kind of a Southeast guy with the Furman ties, and like he played with that swagger and bravado and just did it on the highest level. I mean, that goal, what was it, against Juventus one time, and I mean, just an absolute Hall of Famer for Fulham with McBride, of course. So yeah, let's jump into. I don't want to make you noodle too hard on it, but just have fun with name your perfect 11 of all time.
Man, all time. I don't have enough soccer knowledge, I think, to do this justice. U.S. soccer, maybe. If I do U.S. soccer, I would go with.
Yeah, you can do that.
Brad Friedel.
Right on.
In goal. Kills me over Tim. But that 2002 World Cup was pretty special out of Brad. Tim Howard on the bench.
Sure.
I'd go Chad Marshall, one of the center backs. I'd go Eddie Pope, one of the center backs.
Ooh, yeah.
Got to give my man Frankie.
Yeah.
An outside back spot.
Love Frankie.
Let's see. Probably more home cooking. A guy who should have been part of the World Cup squad. Michael Parkhurst.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to see as in one of the outside backs, if not a center back. Midfielders. Claudio. I think you got to include in there. Um, Wingers, I think you got to put Pulisic in there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, who would I put on the left side?
How about Beasley?
Beasley? No, I probably would go with somebody with a little bit more attacking. I'd like to probably see more of a
I used to love
shoot.
all.
Eddie Gavin, another hometowner.
Nice.
Man,
He was
love it.
awesome.
Justin Mapp. I mean,
I
Justin
love
Mapp was
Justin
so
Mapp.
good. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, you can tell my bias is these underrated guys that
No, they were all. I love those guys.
didn't get, I think, their shot, but I would have loved to have seen them compete against the best of the best on the highest stage.
Mhm.
McBride up top, I'd probably put him with Josie,
Right
and
on.
then Michael Bradley sitting in.
Nice. Love it. Nice. Yeah. I loved Eddie Gavin's style of play. He was great. I feel like he was a little underappreciated, gone too soon, but he was like a wonderkind, right? I mean, he was a beast. And are you still keep in touch with him?
No, Eddie basically retired the same time I did. Just retired early. Just said, "Hey, I've had enough.
Mm-hmm.
Quote unquote my prime, but I'm done with it." And moved to a farm. And basically was like, "I'm not going to talk to any of you guys ever again.
Yeah.
I am checking out."
I hear you, man. You guys put your blood, sweat, and tears into it. And last question: favorite jersey of all time?
That I wore.
Sure.
Man, I love the old Adidas Predator goalkeeper kit.
Oh, yeah, it's the best.
Loved it as a kid.
Yes.
Absolutely loved it.
Love it.
I think that kind of was the moment where I was starting to really enjoy, and realize that I was a little bit of a psychopath and was going to enjoy being a goalkeeper.
Yeah, it takes a special kind, and you were the man for it. Well, hey, man, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, man, I might try to cash in some favors. Not that you owe me any at all, because you already did me a big one. See if we can get some of your equally famous rock star friends to come on. We'll send this to them, and maybe they're impressed. But hey, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Matt, great to see you, dude. Glad you're doing this, and yeah, if I can help you all in any way, let us know.
I will, man, and I'll send you some gifts, and best to your family, best to all our buddies in Raleigh, and maybe I'll give you a holler if I come in town sometime. Maybe me, you, and Dunnigan can go grab some bowls of loudmouth soup or something. And
I love it.
I appreciate it, and thank you so much, man. You be good, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
All right, sounds good, Matt. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, bud. Thank you.
Good.
All right, folks, that was Will Hesmer. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, just this has been the center mid philosopher. Go out there, create beauty out of chaos, be a good team member, get stuck in, put good karma into the atmosphere, take chances, take risks, enjoy it, and lastly, put one on net. Thanks so much.